Thanks everyone for attending this Anax Metals Investor webinar. My name is Chloe Hayes from Investor Relations Consultancy Group Corporate Storytime. We're very pleased to have an opportunity to run through the investment story for Anax Metals. Joining us today is Anax Metals Managing Director, Geoff Laing. Anax is currently completing a DFS to consider a restart of the iconic Pilbara-based Wim Creek copper zinc projects. Geoff will run through an investor presentation to provide an overview of the Anax Metals business, and at the end, we will run through a Q&A. Without any further ado, I'll hand over to Geoff, who will run through the investor presentation. Thanks, Geoff.
Thanks very much, Chloe, and welcome all. We're just going to pull up the presentation. So very pleased to be here this morning and tell you a little bit more. We've been working away very hard, as Chloe says, on the definitive feasibility study, and there are some other key aspects of the business that I'd like to run us through. So the disclaimer to be read at your leisure. I'd like to start off just highlighting that this excellent drone image here looking southwest across the Wim Creek infrastructure. I'll be talking through the three key elements of our business: the delivery, which is all around the definitive feasibility study and restart of the Wim Creek operation; exploration, which we've really been ramping up the ante on in recent months; and then discovery, the new projects that we're looking at, and that more and more so is revolving around potential consolidation of assets. So just a couple of comments to start off with on the, I guess, the commodities that we're exposed to. And we are a copper producer predominantly, or we will be a copper producer predominantly, but a mix of copper and zinc. And those are the two backbone commodities of this green evolution, if you like, the electrification of the globe. And I think it's clear that those commodities will continue to be in high demand. And I just want to make the comment, as someone developing a project, looking at the recent downward pressure in prices, particularly on the copper side, I think the market very quickly factors in the consumption risks, but is much slower in factoring in the supply risks. And certainly with all of the challenges that we've seen in the marketplace, and particularly around supply chains, very strong cost pressures, the supply risks have grown significantly. And we certainly see that we're perfectly placed with the strategy that we're rolling out, using the technology to come in as those supply risks get factored in. And I certainly expect that we're going to see some increases in the copper price over the coming year, and certainly through the timelines that we're looking to develop the project and get into production. So I'm not going to run through this slide in detail on the milestones that we've achieved in the short 2 years that we've held our 80% interest in the project. But I just want to highlight that currently it takes between 10 and 15 years to get a project from discovery through to development. And we've circumvented a big part of that by acquiring an advanced asset. And in 2 years, we've moved through some key studies. We're about to complete a definitive feasibility study. And not only that, in that time, we've attracted the attention of Anglo-American, who are interested in what we're doing. They're keen to get offtake, and they're very interested in the technology. So I just want to highlight that we've sort of really leapfrogged ahead of many of our peers that are going through the more traditional discover and then go through all of the resource development side of things. Using this technology approach, we're able to advance far more quickly and efficiently through to production. So the project itself, Wim Creek is located equidistant between Headland and Karratha, literally 120 k's from each, and we sit behind the iconic Wim Creek hub, which we are incidentally looking at refurbishing, we're working closely with the traditional owners who own the pub, and that's a key element of our strategy going forward because there's a camp there. I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But the project itself, we acquired a little over 10 million tonnes of sulfide resources at a little over % copper, 2% zinc, 0.5% lead. In terms of copper equivalent, relatively high grade resources, and a significant portion of which will be open pittable, and that's what we're focusing on in the DFS. Our joint venture partners, Develop Global, we acquired an 80% interest off them, and they remain a 20% partner, and of course are a potential developer in the region up at Sulphur Springs. The project we expect will generate between 10 and 12,000 tonne a year of copper equivalent over a 7-year mine life. And importantly, it's our focus has been on a low capex development program, and that's absolutely critical, and all the more so in this strong inflationary environment. So the strategy's really come into its own in some key areas, and I'll talk about some of the environmental aspects. But what we're finding is, as costs have been skyrocketing, frankly, the fact that we're able to contain the capital costs is an important factor. Sustainable copper out of the Pilbara, and a very robust project. In terms of people, we've got a very experienced board and a good mix of skills on our board. And I do want to just focus on the management team, because they're the people that make it all happen. And so we have a dedicated management team with again a great set of skills to take us through this development phase. Andrew MacDonald is the manager projects, geologist Wendy, manager project generation, also a geologist. Dan, who's come on as environmental superintendent, doing a fantastic job in all the approvals aspect, big job. Janine, our CFO, not only running the financials, but also running the project with our interactions with the traditional owners. And I just want to mention, we have a fantastic team in Nexus Bonham that are providing a lot of technical and engineering support with Gavin Moons, Tony Perry, and Mark. Not going to dwell on the slide too much. Just want to highlight here in terms of the cash position. That cash position is in fact end of June, so 7.3 million as at the end of June. So we're in a strong cash position. Moving forward, obviously aggressively spending on the DFS. We also have some investments in other listed assets, mainly in Xantippe, which add to the liquid or semi-liquid assets that we have. We're certainly seeing that on the share price side of things. I think everyone has seen some downward pressure in recent months, which has followed the commodity prices and also some liquidity, volatility in the market, and looking forward to that all settling down and changing in coming months. So I'd like to talk a little bit on this slide, because it's all about the technology, and I'd like to start off by saying that what we're doing here is very different to many others. We identified a technology that we believe is a disruptive technology, being this particle sorting technology, and I'll give you some examples of other disruptive technologies in the mining space. But what I want to just highlight here is we acquired Wim Creek with the knowledge that this disruptive technology would be extremely powerful in, sort of leveraging up the value of the project. So it's quite different to people that are looking to the technology to try and fix problems in their project. We've acquired a project that we know will be highly leveraged to the technology. So in terms of disruptive technology, some good examples are solvent extraction and electrowinning that was introduced in the late 70s, early 80s, which completely changed the shape of the copper oxide, these huge copper oxide deposits that suddenly became economic. And Another good example is carbon and pulp in the gold space, another disruptive technology. And we certainly see that this particle sorting will do the same. The specifics of that in the Wim Creek flow sheet are really around the fact that you can mine at the optimal rate, and then you can use a combination of the particle sorting technology and gravity separation technologies to shrink the volume of material that's processed into a much smaller, more efficient processing infrastructure. And so we're using traditional concentrator to produce copper, zinc, and lead concentrates, but we'll be mining at about 800,000 tonne per annum and processing at around about 300,000 tonnes per annum. And this is, as I say, so important in this inflationary environment where we're able to manage both CapEx and OpEx through the application of the technology. And then we use a second stage sort to scalp out any of the material that's not economic in the concentrator, and that goes on to a heap leach. And we've been making fantastic progress in the bioleaching area. That won't be part of the DFS, but it will form part of the studies that come in subsequent to the DFS. And ultimately, you end up with essentially barren aggregates that can be used for engineering fill, road sheeting, etc. This flow sheet is a very robust flow sheet, and I believe one that will be adopted through the industry, and particularly in these VMS style deposits, you'll see much more of it. On the mining side, we've advanced very well on the mining studies. There's a bit more work to be done. I just want to highlight here, you can see an image of the Monkapri pit with the new pit superimposed on it. And here you can see a long section of that pit. And what I want to highlight here is the high grade. So this is a classic VMS deposit where you have the massive sulfide sitting at the top. So we've got all of the high grade material is encountered early on in the mining sequence. And that's a key element in early stage cash flow, and also helps us de-risk the project. Jump down to Wim Creek, similar setup. So here you can see the existing pit, you can see the new pit superimposed on that. And again, we've got the higher grade material sitting at the top of the resource. We are very advanced. This is the ore sorting plant. This is obviously an image of the 3D model of the ore sorting plant. And I'll just kick off. Here you can see the internal of an ore sorter. This is in fact Wim Creek material that's being processed in a commercial ore sorter. You can see that the sulfide rocks being ejected within the ore sorter. So we've got a state-of-the-art ore sorting plant that's been designed by Nexus. We've got parallel primary ore sorters. We've got a single secondary ore sorter. And as I say, it is a state-of-the-art plant. This has been designed based on experience that Nexus has gained in designing other ore sorting plants and having been involved in probably 20 other projects. Moving on to the modular concentrator, we have Gecko Systems have designed the modular concentrator for us. Again, I'm just going to run here. You've got a 3D model, which you can see in the corner. When you think of this concentrator, think compact, think modular, and think efficient. It will be built largely off-site, brought into site, put together. That's the most efficient way to do it, particularly in these elevated labor cost environments. The best part of this whole process is through the ore sorting and the gravity separation, we get a much higher intensity of metal unit production through a relatively small processing facility. And that's how we manage our capital cost upfront, our capital cost spend upfront. So some comments now about the DFS that's currently rolling out. The DFS will cover what I call the stage one part of the project, which is all the open pits or the open pittable portions of the project. Those are obviously the lowest risk from a mining perspective, and the simplest to get going. The critical mass sits at Mont Capri, which you saw in the earlier slide, and then that'll be followed by Wim Creek and Evelyn and then Salt Creek. I don't want to dwell on the numbers too much, because obviously when the DFS comes out, there'll be a different set of numbers. I do want to say that we, like everyone else, certainly seeing the effects of the cost increases. And again, I think the best part of all of this is that our strategy does mitigate to a large extent those cost increases, particularly in the processing and infrastructure development side of things. Obviously, on the mining side, we're more exposed to cost increases. So moving on, again, in terms of the numbers, I don't want to dwell on them specifically until we get the DFS numbers out, but I do want to highlight, in terms of the sensitivities, we have the sensitivities will remain similar for the DFS. And I expect that the project will continue to be relatively insensitive to capital, and of course, most sensitive to the copper and zinc price and the exchange rate. And certainly what we've seen going back to the sort of the market dynamics is the exchange rate has certainly played into our favor with as the commodity prices have softened, the Aus dollar has softened as well. And so on a Australian dollar copper price, we've seen a much lower impact than certainly in the US dollar copper prices. The item that I want to talk about on this is the distribution of revenue. So it is truly a copper project. So 55% of the revenue will come from copper, and then about 30% from zinc, and then the balance from gold, silver, and lead. And then looking at the operating cost profile, again, that'll be updated in the DFS, but I expect it's going to have a similar sort of profile, mining being by far the largest single cost. And the processing costs we've managed to really shrink down on the back of the technology that we're applying. So ESG is a critical element going forward. And while a lot of people talk about what they're able to do and bringing in solar plants, et cetera, the technology that we're using, the particle sorting technology, delivers measurable benefits in terms of a carbon footprint. And it does that by essentially shrinking down the volume of material that's processed. That means that you shrink down the size of your tailings dam. It reduces the power that's consumed. It reduces the water and chemicals. So we already know what benefit we're going to be able to deliver in terms of power reductions, 22 megawatt hours in power reductions. And the tailings is a critical element in the development and approval of any project. And the fact that we're able to reduce the quantum of tailings by nearly half is important. As it turns out, our tailings will be in-pit tailings, which is a benefit as well. The project does have reticulated gas to it from the Pilbara network. So it won't be a diesel generated system, it'll be gas, which is obviously an improvement on the diesel. And just finally, we are looking at a key part of our development strategy is the repurposing of the aggregates that will ultimately be produced from that ore sorting process. So we're looking into that. And we just recently put out an announcement about our involvement with the Future Batteries Industry and Initiative. And we're looking at repurposing some or all of the existing heap that's there, which is also of sort of aggregate quality potentially. So it's all about focusing on the environmental aspects. The all-important schedule. We've been working very hard to get this feasibility study delivered, and I expect we're still seeing some areas in the mining and the metallurgy space that may push the delivery of the feasibility study out into October. So we'll continue to work hard to get it out. guessing at this stage it'll be mid to late October. That still leaves the approvals process, which is running well. We are in constant contact with both the Department of Mines. The mining proposal was submitted several months ago. We also have a works approval, which was submitted to DWER, Department of Water, Energy, and Department of Water and Environment. So those two approvals will ultimately be the critical path. The approvals, as I say, are moving ahead. We're still aiming to get approvals in place by the end of the year. Again, like all of our contemporaries in the mining space, we are reliant on the agencies and departments themselves in terms of the timing. Now, importantly, I'll move this along, but importantly, the exploration has ramped up. We've just completed our first round of what we call exploration drilling. It's exciting to be into exploration drilling. You can see on the map here, we sit on the western border of De Grey, and we have a fantastic gold exploration potential. And we also have what we call the near mine base metal potential. So looking at growing the VMS deposits themselves, and of course, because they occur in clusters, potentially finding other VMS deposits. So we've rolled out a very systematic soil sampling using this new ultrafine soil sampling technology that's been very effective. That identified an anomaly at what we call HLF, which is right next to the heap leach facility. We've drilled that, so we're awaiting those results, very excited about that. And then the other drilling was related to looking at growth on the east and west extents of Wim Creek up here, and then between Mons Capri Northwest, where there's a small pit, and Mons Capri itself. And then importantly down at Evelyn, we've also put in a hole there to look at extensions to that very high grade deposit. Just before I finish off on the exploration side of things, we are also looking at some significant PGE anomalism on our western, on both our eastern and western borders. And we'll certainly be looking at getting in and doing some drilling on this one on the eastern border as soon as we can get heritage approval for that. Finally, before I wrap up, we have worked very hard to satisfy all the conditions of an environmental protection notice, which was served on the previous owners of the project. That has included significant fix-ups to the project. And here again, you're looking southwest over the project infrastructure. You can see the new pond that we've built. We've cleaned out all of the precipitates from the environmental pond. We've refurbished all of the process ponds, put in significant network of funding. So we've ticked all the boxes on the key elements of the EPN, and that will allow us now to secure our works approval and mining proposal approvals. So just finishing off, before I'd like to run a fly through of the project. The Wim Creek project is a near-term copper producer. We've attracted the interest of Anglo-American through the development of it. The exploration is really ramping up. There's plenty of upside potential from the exploration. And then the last aspect, which I haven't talked about yet, is really the potential consolidation within the Pilbara region. There are at least 10 deposits within a 100-kilometer radius that would fit in well with the processing that we are planning to put in place, and that are deposits that on their own perhaps won't be able to justify a full processing infrastructure for themselves. So there's potential there for consolidation, and we're certainly looking at all of that in parallel with our own development. So without further ado, we will switch across now to it's just a few minutes of fly through, which will give you a real sense of the infrastructure that we've got at the Wim Creek site.
Welcome to the Wim Creek Project, an advanced base metals project in the Pilbara region of Western Australia, within an already well-established mining infrastructure. The project is full steam ahead, with development already underway to sustainably produce copper within an 18-month time period. And Anax is proud to own 80% of the project. Access to the project is via the Northwest Coastal Highway. The Bala Bala Road leads to a proposed new port facility 18 kilometres to the north. Across from the Northwest Coastal Highway is the Wim Creek airstrip. Wim Creek Pit is an existing mining pit and resource which commenced in 2004. The pit is planned to open back up with new tech to kickstart a new production process. West of Wim Creek Pit lies an exploration opportunity for a potential resource extension in the future. Bala Bala Creek is the main drainage system across the project. It runs near the Haul Road, which connects Wim Creek Pit to the processing infrastructure and creates connectivity around the Wim Creek site. Exciting exploration target areas lie across the ephemeral Bala Bala Creek. Ridgeback Gold and Wim Creek East sit between existing sites. Various exploration targets are currently being explored. Significant refurbishment works have now been completed at the environmental pond. This is a requirement to rectify parts of the infrastructure that were previously disregarded from past owners and operations, aiming to reduce the environmental impact of the infrastructure. Heap leaching of oxide ore was successfully undertaken during previous operations and will play an important part of the future project development. We will use the infrastructure in part to recover copper and zinc, which will deliver additional revenue streams. The existing crushing infrastructure is being refurbished with new technology to integrate ore sorting units into the plant. Through the use of crushing and ore sorting, we will separate out high-grade ore, which will go to the new concentrator plant. Pre-concentrates will go through the plant and produce copper and zinc concentrates. Second stage material will be placed onto the heap, which will be treated through the heap process to produce further copper and zinc sulfate. The ROM pad is an ore stockpile for crushing. Ore from the open pits will go up Haul Road and be dumped by mining trucks onto the pad. These get fed into the existing crusher pocket. Existing site office, core yard and workshop infrastructure are located between the heap and environmental pond. Mons Couprie Northwest contains a historical oxide mining pit, which will be used to deposit tailings. South of existing pits are further exploration prospects. A future waste rock dump is planned near Mons Couprie Hills. The future waste dump is designed to blend into the landscape. The main ore lies beneath Mons Couprie Hill. Main mining activities will take place from the Mons Couprie oxide pit. Future expansion of the pit is planned to unearth more copper and zinc resources. Welcome to the Wim Creek Project.
Thanks for the update, Geoff. That fly-through was excellent. Now on to the Q&A. Our first question today is, as you've discussed in your presentation, global resources company Anglo American are committed to debt funding and offtake for the metal and concentrate to be produced from Wim Creek, pending the outcome of the DFS. What does the involvement of such a large company in Wim Creek say about the quality of the project?
Yeah, thanks, Chloe. It's we were obviously very, very pleasantly surprised when Anglo started showing interest in the project, and they are interested because of the near-term potential for copper production. And it's, I think that it shows just how difficult it is to find near-term copper production, because Wim Creek is not a large project, certainly in the scale of the Anglo-American stable. But they not only like the potential that we are going to deliver the near-term copper, but the technology is something that they also like, that we're using. And so for those two reasons, they've, I guess, sort of got involved early, and certainly subject to the DFS, we aim to secure what will be vanilla debt funding from them, and they'll get access to the offtakes of the zinc and copper concentrates.
Our next question is, we've seen recent M&A activity in the Australian copper sector with PHP bidding for Oz Minerals. In your view, does this signal a global shift in the copper market driven by electric vehicles and renewable energy demand for the commodity?
Yeah, I think it clearly does. The larger companies are now starting to look for that the pipeline of projects and obviously operations in the case of Oz to keep growing their copper business. And it's certainly very pleasing to see in the copper space that this activity is starting to take off. And obviously starting at the top end of town with those sort of companies, we expect that we should see that filtering down to the smaller end of town. And we believe that we present a fantastic growth opportunity, but especially in the Pilbara, in a region that's attractive from a geopolitical perspective and from a mine development perspective.
Our next question is, how does De Grey's stunning exploration success with the Hemi discovery shape your view of the gold exploration potential at Wim Creek?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So we're obviously very excited to have picked up the exploration tenure that we've got. We were primarily focused on the resources, but coming with that has been this tenure that sits on the western boundary of De Grey's substantial tenure. And I think I'd just like to make the point that De Grey's tenure spans 150 odd kilometers east to west. And we sit right on their western boundary. We sit just 13 kilometers from their Tawarana deposit. So that just gives a sense, when you're having a look at what this new gold province might look like. We're sitting right in the gold province. And we've got the benefit of using some of the vectors that they've used that they've been so successful with in finding these very substantial gold deposits. So we've obviously been using some of those vectors, and the HLF drilling has certainly used some of those identifiers in terms of the mineralization. So it's very exciting.
And do cutting edge exploration practices provide Anax with an opportunity to discover more significant base metals ore bodies within the Wim Creek project? Yes,
certainly. Technology is new technology is a theme that's near and dear to us, and certainly we're looking at it in the project development space and also in the exploration space. And this ultrafine soil sampling or analysis of soils, that technique has already yielded some very positive results, specifically in the golds, looking for gold, but also for base metals. So that's certainly the case. And I think I'd just like to make a point as well that over the Wim Creek package, there's been a much greater focus on the base metals. And this ultrafine technology that we're using is a fantastic tool for the gold exploration, which has been generally overlooked over our Wim Creek package. So we certainly expect to see some very positive results from that technology.
Our next question is, Develop Global Limited are both a joint venture partner and an innovative mining contractor and mine developer. How do you envisage future synergies between Anax and Develop might benefit Anax shareholders?
Yeah, another interesting question. There are some true synergies there. Develop are clearly a mining specialist, and they've got their mining contracting group that they're ramping up. We are more of a processing specialist. Our focus has been much more on the surface activities and I guess, optimizing the development path for these VMS deposits. Develop have the Sulphur Springs project in the Pilbara region. So there are a lot of aspects that, there could be some collaboration, consolidation perhaps. So we'll continue to work within their we meet with them once a month to tell them all about the work that we're doing. And I certainly see that there is potential for us to collaborate a lot more. And as I say, there's within the Pilbara region, the VMS style deposits may well get consolidated in the future.
And finally, our last question is, can you estimate the CapEx saving achieved as a result of the concentrator being smaller than would otherwise be necessary due to the efficiencies associated with the upgrading of ore through the ore sorting technology?
Yes, I think that we could say that the savings would be in the order of probably $40 to $50 million if we were having to build what would be a traditional concentrator with all of the infrastructure that hangs off it, and then included in that a tailings dam that's double the size. It would certainly be in the order of well north of 30 million, but perhaps up as high as 50 million. So it's very significant savings.
Great. Well, that appears to cover the majority of questions from our audience today. We wish to thank Geoff and the Anax team for the updates. We will make a recording of this webinar available via Anax Metals and Corporate Storytime digital media accounts after some editing. And if you have any further questions for Geoff, please forward them to info@corporatestorytime.com. Thanks everyone for attending, and thanks, Geoff.
Thanks all. Thanks very much, Chloe.